Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles, and I welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, when we give you guys a first perspective on things and how we see them. And in today's episode, the topic is, will the Clippers get their revenge on the Denver Nuggets on Christmas Day? So that's the topic I want to get into in today's video. But before we get into that, I want you guys to please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Also, be sure to check out our Dreamerspro Podcast, which is in the description below. Be on the lookout for our Dreamerspro platform that we're launching the first week of January. And Dreamerspro.com, which will be launching also in the first week, in January, which we're pretty excited about to bring you guys more in-depth sports content. Anyway, so let me just get into this topic here. I think there are going to be a lot of games on Christmas Day, number one. Okay, I think there are about 6 or 7 games. And as you know, you can only cover so many games, right? There's only one. There's only how many of us are actually here? So I chose some games that I'm going to cover, and this is one of the games that I'm going to be covering. And I said, okay, let me just do a quick prediction video going into this game, because it's also a pretty interesting story because of what happened last season. In the playoffs. Now, we all remember the Clippers were the favorites by most people going into the playoffs last year to win the NBA title. Most people had them picked to win the title. Some people picked the Lakers, but it was by a very small margin. It wasn't like as if, the people that picked the Lakers was by a wide margin, probably with the exception of Nick Wright and Shannon Sharpe. Probably these two people were the only two people, but most people picked the Clippers, but not by such a huge margin. So what happened? Clippers went into they went out there, they went and got Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. There was all this hype around these guys coming to LA. There was supposed to be this big battle of LA that we were all waiting for, the confrontation that had, that the NBA had been building up all throughout the season. And this is what we were waiting for, right? Little did we know that there was another team out there planning on poo-pooing that whole matchup. Little did we know that. And I mean, at least I didn't know that. And going into the NBA bubble, one of the things we were looking for, especially from the Clippers side, as far as productivity, was Paul George, because Paul George for the regular season last year was not very he wasn't very consistent because he had an off year. Some people can attribute it to his shoulder surgery. Some people can attribute it to his injuries coming in and out of the lineup. But for the season, he averaged 21.5 points per game. He got you 1.4 steals, 3.9 assists, 5.2 rebounds, he shot 87% from the free throw line, which was very good. Over 41% from the three for this season, which is actually great. That's a very high 3-point percentage, and 44% from the field. Now, if you look at those numbers on their face, you say, okay, these are pretty good numbers, right? However, the season before, he averaged 28 points per game, 2.2 steals, 4.1 assists, 8.2 rebounds, shot 39% from the 3-point line, and 40+% from the 43+% from the field. So he had a drop off in his production. And so that was a thing that people were looking at, like, okay, listen, we went out there, we paid all this money to get this guy, and we're not seeing the production. But in those 8 bubble games that he was there, because because of the shutdown, in those 8 bubble games, Paul George actually was putting up good numbers. He was averaging 25.5 points per game, shooting 50% from the 3 in those last, in those games. So for me, I was like, okay, this guy looks like he's in playoff form. So what happened when he got to the second round? In the second round, I actually have a record of that series between the Clippers and the Denver Nuggets. So in the first game, let's say, the Clippers won that game decisively. They won it 120-97. It was a decisive win. In the following game, the Denver Nuggets were able to bounce back, beating the Clippers 110-101, right? But then in game 3, the Clippers went up there and they beat them 113-107. And then in game 4, they beat them 96-85, right? So at that point, you're like, okay, smooth sailing. We won 3 of the first 4 games. Let's just go ahead and get the next game, and then all of a sudden we'll be on to the next round. And what happened? They dropped the next game 111-105. Then what happened? They dropped the next game 111-98. And then finally, the last game, which we all remember, the infamous Game 7, they dropped it 104-89, and we all remember what happened at the end of that series. In that Game 7, and they just blew that lead. And in that, there were so many issues that the Clippers had. Some people were talking about the interior defense. They couldn't really deal with Nikola Jokic, which they couldn't. So if we're looking at their offseason acquisitions, the key acquisitions, I'm only going to focus on Serge Ibaka, right? Now, Serge Ibaka, this particular acquisition is twofold. Number one, they're replacing Serge Ibaka with Montrezl Harrell, who is a very good player, high energy guy, can score, he averaged about 18.6 points per game last season, I believe it was, and 7+ rebounds. But in the playoffs, his production dropped all the way down to 10 points or so. So he didn't show up in the playoffs for them. And you're replacing him. Montrezl Harrell was a 6'7" power forward with a legitimate 7-footer that has led the league in blocks 2 times before. That can play great interior defense. I mean, he's not Bill Russell or anything like this, but he's a solid defender in the paint, and he gives him some shot blocking in the paint. And we're going to be looking at this matchup if Serge Ibaka can alter some of the things that Nikola Jokic is going to be doing. Now, obviously, he can't stop him because Nikola Jokic, the Joker, is way too talented. But we're going to be looking at the sort of the effect that this guy is going to have on that team, especially in the interior handling someone like this. Because last season, Montrezl Harrell simply could not contend with this guy. So that's one of the key things we're going to be looking at. That's one of the key upgrades. Now, if we look at the key players in this series, we got Kawhi Leonard, who averaged 27+ points per game last season, 7+ rebounds, and I think close to 5 assists per game. So he played well. He had a great season. We just looked at Paul George's numbers, so we know how he did. But another key contributor that we got to look at on the other side, number one, is Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray he was a difficult cover last season. In the playoffs, he averaged 26.5 points per game. He got you almost a steal a game, 6.6 assists, 4.8 rebounds, shot 90% from the free throw line, 45% from the 3, and 50% from the field. That 50% from the field, that number right there shows you just how hot he was in the playoffs and just how effective he was. And he did that in 19 games in the playoffs. So it wasn't like as if it was just one series. He kept his hot shooting going all throughout the playoffs. So he's somebody that we're going to have to watch to see, will the Clippers be able to deal with him and slow him down? Because in the playoffs, and that's in that series, they could not slow him down whatsoever. Then you have Nikola Jokic, right? And he was the nightmare matchup. He was just picking the defense of the Clippers to shreds. He picked them apart. In the playoffs last season, he averaged 24.4 points per game, 1.1 steals, 5.7 assists as your center. 5.7 assists, which is incredible. I think he averaged more assists than Jamal Murray, if I'm not mistaken. 9.8 rebounds, 83% from the free throw line. Shot 42% from the 3. Go figure. And he also shot 50% from the field. These guys gave the Clippers all type of matchup problems, but Nikola Jokic was the main guy that they just could not really handle because how he was scoring at the top of the at the top of the elbow. He was just shredding the defense apart. So the things to look for, in my opinion, can the Clippers get a lead and maintain a lead? We know they can do that. They've done that so many times. Can they get a lead on this team? Can they maintain it? They did it against the Lakers and they were able to maintain it. So it looked like they turned the corner a bit. But let's see if that was just a one-game thing or if this is something that can actually happen going forward over and over and over again. So we're gonna watch for that. And secondly, how are they going to defend Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray? These are the two key things that I'm going to be paying attention to in this game to see how they're able to match up with these guys. So finally, if I'm going to give you my prediction, which I'm going to make right now, my prediction is I believe that the Clippers are going to win this game. Actually, I'm going into this game feeling a little bit more confident. Now that I kind of see what the Clippers look like with this different set of players, I feel like they're a much smarter team. They're a more versatile team, especially on the defensive end. So I think that the Clippers can come away with this win. So my prediction for this game, I believe that the Clippers are going to win this game. So what I want to know from you guys is, who do you think is going to win this game between the Clippers and the Denver Nuggets on Christmas Day? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoyed the video, please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Again, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out the next video that we got coming up here. Once again, this is Charles here from Dreamerspro, wishing you guys an amazing day. Peace.